Welcome to Writing Black Joy Season 3. I'm Sophia Robinson, and I'm a story listener, a writing coach, an editor, as well as the producer of Writing Black Joy, a virtual space that celebrates, centers, and promotes the voices of Black writers and storytellers with joyful and uplifting stories. Here, you'll find conversations with some of my favorite Black writers and storytellers, learn more about their projects and the joy they're bringing into the world, hear more about their creative processes, and find inspiration for your own creative ventures, as well as tips and strategies for writing poetry, blogs, creative nonfiction, fiction, plays, and so much more from all types of writers, as well as a sneak peek into the writing life. You could even find your next favorite writer, book, poem, play, or blog. And if you're a Black writer who is looking for a coach or an editor to help you bring your joyful story into the world, then click on my website below to find out how to work with me. In the meantime, let's go to today's guest. Hello, everyone. We are back at Writing Black Joy over here, and today I am joined by Martinus Evans. Now, Martinus is a brilliant storyteller, and it may or may not be because he has the best stories. Either way, you are going to love this conversation, and you are going to love his book. Let me tell you a little bit about him. Martinus Evans has run over 8 marathons since his doctor told him to lose weight or die in July 2012. Since then, he's also coached hundreds of runners and founded the Slow AF Run Club, a community of over 10,000 members worldwide. He's also the author of the book Slow AF Run Club, the ultimate guide for anybody who wants to run. When he's not running races around the world, he enjoys speaking passionately about issues related to size-inclusivity, mindset, DEI, and mental health. This conversation was so much fun. Just a note that there is a tiny amount of swearing here, so if you have kids around, just slap on some headphones. Martinus and I talked about the inspiration and future dream plans for the Slow AF Run Club, how Martinus thinks about representation in his work and what he creates, the places running has taken him and what he loves about it, posing nude, yep, I said it, nude in Men's Health magazine, how he made writing his first book manageable for him by crunching the numbers, the ups and downs of publishing his book, what he is creating next for the Slow AF Run Club, letting our creations take on a life of their own, how our relationship with what we create changes when we turn the thing we love into work, and so much more. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. All right, so welcome back to Writing Black Joy, and I have my guest with me today, which is Martinus Evans. All right, so thank you so much for joining me, Martinus. You are the powerhouse behind the Slow AF Running Club and your podcast, 300 Pounds and Running Network. I've only read the first chapter of the Slow AF Running Club, but I really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to the release, which we are going to talk about a bit later. Absolutely. But let us start by me asking you, tell us a bit about I normally say tell us a bit about your project, but you've got so many things going on. So let's start by you telling me, where did the Slow AF Running Club come from? How did that sort of journey start?
Absolutely. So Slow AF Run Club came about, I was running a race, and this drunk asshole heckled me. And I say it loosely. So I was running a race. Imagine running a race, you're in your zone, got your headphones on, and out the corner of your eye, you notice some like big gestures, like big gestures, yelling and pointing. And it's like, you take off your headphones, and it's like, what's going on? And then all you hear is, you're slow as fuck, go home. You're slow, go. I'm like, what? You're slow, go home. So then I get into this little argument because I'm like, what the hell, man? Like, who are you? So I get into this argument and I'm like, you're telling me I'm slow and I should go home, but you're the one that's drunk on the side of the road.
Okay.
Like, really? Like, you're the one that's drunk on the side of the road telling me to go home, but I'm the one that's running the race. Man, if you don't get up out of here. So that resonated with me. And from that point on, I started to wear shirts that had slow AF on the cross of my chest. People found that hilarious.
Love it.
I was just making a statement, but people found that hilarious. So much so that people started to ask me, hey, Martinus, is there do you sell these things? Where can I find this shirt? So then I started to offer to sell the shirts. The first weekend I sold the shirts, I sold 500 t-shirts.
What?
Yes.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Like,
So
I would buy one of those shirts. I'm going to tell you my half marathon running story later. I think you're probably the only person who will appreciate it. But go ahead.
Okay. So sell these shirts, and then individuals start to reach out and say, hey man, is there a Facebook group part along with this? I want to meet and greet other people who've bought these shirts. Let's make a community of it. And that's what I did. I created a community, figured out how to do an app, got an app created. Shout out to my folks at Mighty Networks.
Woo-hoo.
And we have an app created. So it's a Slow AF Run Club app. We house everything there. I like to think of ourselves as the Facebook for slow runners, where individuals can hop in, meet other runners in their local area, and talk all things running without all the extra BS that happens inside of a Facebook group, like politics and yelling, and because aunts and families and yelled at you and all these other things. I kind of see it as a running utopia. So I kind of grew from there, and then the pandemic happened, and everybody was starting to run, and we grew very fast. We grew from a couple thousand members to 10,000 members worldwide.
Whoa.
Yes.
Wow, that is mind-blowing.
Yeah. So it seems like everybody's running Slow AF during the pandemic. And, that's where we're at now. We have about 10,000 members and growing. And we're just a house for individuals who feel like they are not celebrated or chosen at other run crews or other run clubs, and just feel like they're just left out. We are the community for them.
Well, that is so incredible. I have so many questions, which I will not bombard you with all at once, but I love that. So where did the idea for the book come from? What gave you the idea? Because obviously you've got a podcast, so you're used to creating content, but writing a book is a whole other thing. So where did that actual idea come from?
Yes, writing a book is a whole different beast. I advise my friends not to do it because it was just so hard, but I did it though. So how I came about this was that I were training a lot of individuals, both on a one-on-one basis and on a group level. And a lot of the members would ask me hey, Martinez, these lectures are great, but I want to learn more on my own. Where can I find additional stuff? What books would you recommend? And most of the time the answer was none of them. I wouldn't recommend, if you're looking for a how-to book right now, none of them. And they'll be like, why? And my answer was, it's because 99% of running books out there are written by elite athletes, former elite athletes, or coaches of elite athletes teaching you how to run like them.
Mm-hmm.
So most of that material is useless to you. They're not going to tell you, hey, if you're chafing, stop wearing cotton underwear, and get some Body Glide, right? These books ain't going to tell you. You're thinking, oh, well, I'm trying to lose weight, so I'm not going to eat before I go run, and be and then next thing you know, your ass is on the side of the road about to pass out because you ain't ate, and now you out there running, right? None of these books tell you that stuff, but they can tell you how to get fast. They can tell you all of the speed workouts to do. They don't tell you some of the basic stuff that individuals like myself had to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
So that's why I decided to write the book.
And I love that. And then one of the things that you said right at the beginning, and it struck me because it's something I'd heard before, that if you decide to run a marathon, because we'll talk about that because you run marathons. The most I've run is a half marathon. Okay, so I take all the hats off to you. But you said it's 90% mental game, 10% physical game, which is like on the one hand, mind blowing to me, but on the other hand, it almost feels a bit like writing a book because there is a big mental game involved. But I think that's really important because I think one of the, so as I mentioned, you also have a podcast, and your podcast is called 300 Pounds and Running. And right at the beginning of the book, you tell the story about going to your doctor, and the doctor's like, you know, you tell the doctor you're going to run a marathon, the doctor's like, it's going to kill you, basically. And you're like, yeah, too bad, I'm gonna do it anyway. And off you went and did it, right? And so obviously physically it didn't seem like something that and I'll just say I would fall into the 300 pounds and running club as well. So I'm except I walk, I don't run, but I would fall into that club as well. So I totally understand the things that the doctors tell you, the BS, but also what gave you the like the mental sort of like this, like what actually gave you that inspiration, I would guess, to decide to run that first marathon in the first place?
It was pure spite.
Spite. I love
Spite. Just this pure spite. That's what kept me going for a very long time. And then after that, I started to actually run races, and I found like how much fun it was. It was like a reverse parade. It was like you were running and like people were cheering, clap you on. I was like, this is dope. Like this is fun. Um, so as I continued to run races, like this process from when the doctor called me fat and told me lose weight or die, that happened in like June or July 2012. I actually didn't run the marathon until October of 2013. So it was almost like a year and a half, almost 18 months that I took to actually train and prepare to do that. And along the way, like I ran races, I trained more, I learned a lot of things about myself and my body that, people just don't think it just happened. For a lot of people, it's like, oh, your doctor called you fat and then you went to go run a marathon. And I wish that was the case. No, it took me about 18 months, right? So it was a lot of trying things, experimenting, but also knowing that like, oh, I really want to run this and I'm going to run it. So let me figure out how to get there.
Okay. And that I love that. And yeah, it takes time, it does take, I think it takes time to train for. I took a whole year to train for my half marathon. So 18 months to me is like, that seems like a reasonable amount of time. So one of the things that you talked a bit about, again, in the introduction to your book, you talked about representation, right? Not that you have the weight of representing all of the Black or fat or whatever runners, or the slow back of the packs runners, but the importance of that representation. Can you say a bit more about that?
Yeah, I think that the beautiful part about running is that, or like the sport of running, is that anybody can do it. And since I feel like anybody can do it, one of the things I wanted to make sure that I do is make sure that I'm providing information that's relevant to the majority of the population out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to representation, I personally have not seen myself in the running industry for a very long time. Like I'm 6'4", I'm 300 pounds. I wear a size 3X t-shirt. I wear a size 15 shoe. Like when you think of a traditional runner, I'm none of those things. So for me, representation has always been a big thing because I've never seen myself in the professionals or just in the running industry in general. So for myself, I wanted to make sure that the things that I do um, is representative of that thought. Like, dang, I've never been represented, never seen myself. So when I do something, and if I have the opportunity, like what sense would it make for me to then be exclusive when I've already been excluded myself?
Yeah.
So my thing is like, let me try to bring in as many people as possible. Let's try to make things work for them. Let's let them know that, hey, this thing can be done. And let me try to provide them with tools and tricks on how to do it, right? Even for like the merch I make, right? I could have stopped at a 3X. I could have stopped at a 4X and be like, well, I got my size. Well, job well done, Martinus. But I took the extra mile and decided to go to a 5 or 6X, right? Just to let people know that, hey, it can be done. And if I can do it with my limited budget, little to no budget, and no experience making clothes, if I can do it, imagine with the brands who actually have millions of dollars of budgets and they have people on staff whose job is it to make clothes, can do it. They just choose not to because it don't benefit them.
Yeah. Which is weird because people are buying your stuff. So clearly it would benefit them if they did it,
Yes.
but whatever. More for you. I'm all about that.
Yeah.
I'm definitely about that. So I would love to, always ask my guests, I'm sorry, to bring along a quote. So tell us about your quote and what it represents to you.
So I got a quote on my wrist that says, "No struggle, no progress." And it comes from the famed Frederick Douglass speech of, I want to say 1857. Don't quote me on that because that might be wrong. But that quote, ever since I heard that, right, and heard the speech, I remember being like, oh, that's so dope. I want that. And I remember going out when I was 16 years old. Sorry, Mom. And like getting this tattooed on my wrist.
Sorry, Mom.
And like I remember like wearing watches. Back then, like wristbands were in style. Like shout out to Nelly. So I was like always wearing like a wristband on that wrist or like some type of watch.
I love that. To hide it. So it was a struggle. It was a struggle to hide your tattoo.
It was. But that quote really means a lot to me. And it's something that whenever I'm going through trials and tribulations, I can just always look to my right wrist and know like there's no struggle, there's no progress without some type of struggle.
Yeah. And that's something that I keep reminding myself. Even with like this podcast, I was like, I'm about to launch the next season, and I'm looking at all the episodes I have to edit, and I'm like, you know what? No struggle, no progress. So thank you for the reminder. Thank you for the reminder. Now, I know you've been running, it sounds like for about 11 years now, because you said since 2012. So tell us about some of the highlights of that sort of decade.
Oh man, we had some ups and downs. Let me see.
We can get to the downs too, but let's start with I like to start off on a high note.
Well, like most of the highlights too. Been on the cover of Runner's World, posed nude in Men's Health, been on tons of different press, ran races that I never thought I'd run. For example, Big Sur Marathon. I ran that race by far the most beautiful place I've ever been. Running has took me to London, running around the city looking for trickle pudding. Did you
find it though? Did you find that trickle pudding?
I did not find trickle pudding.
I'm gonna send some. I'm in the UK now, so I'm gonna send some for you.
I did not find trickle pudding. I did find sticky toffee pudding though, and people said it's somewhat similar, but I did not find trickle pudding when I was running around London.
I'm gonna find some for you.
So like even that experience, right, of like being in London for the first time and me asking people like, hey, like what should I be getting in London? Like, don't give me fish and chips mess. Like, cool, I understand that, but like what are things that I should be looking for? And somebody was like, oh, well, really gotta go get trickle pudding. Like a proper pub would have it. And I'm like, oh, say less then. And then running around the city for like 3 hours, going into each pub and be like, hey, this is an interesting, like, I'm about to ask you a weird question. And then be like, what's up, mate? And be like, do you have trickle pudding? And they'd be like, no. I'm like, and just like run off to the next pub, right? And like did that for hour after hour, just having so much fun. I was like, well, we don't have no trickle pudding, but like, you know what? I'm hungry. Let me get something to eat. And then I'm gonna run to the next pub. So like being able to do that, that's something I would never have done if running wasn't in my life.
This is gonna sound like a strange question, but what part of running do you love? Okay, and here's the reason I ask. When I've off and on during my life, probably up until about 10 years ago, running was in and out. I ran at school, cross country, then I stopped, and I did little 5Ks, 10Ks. Then like in 2009, I was like, I'm gonna run the Bristol half marathon, because I had studied in Bristol, and I always remember seeing the half marathons every year and feeling like I couldn't do it. So I gave myself this good year to train. And as soon as I started training, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to train for a marathon next. Anyway, it was hard, right? It was bloody hard. And even on the day, like, I was kind of sick on the day, but I was like, I've been training for this thing for a year. This is happening regardless. And I went ahead and I did it. But I almost like, it's one of those things that, you know, I always think like, the first 20 minutes is really hard, and then like you get that euphoria, but then I feel like I'm breaking down after, like, you know, 10 miles or whatever, and that last 3 miles was so hard that when I was done, I was just like, I never want to walk again. And I always wonder, like, when do you enjoy the running? Is it while you're running? Is it when you're done and you've like accomplished the thing? Like, I need to know, because I sort of, you know, every time I think about doing it again, all I can think about is that pain.
It really depends. If you're running with a group of people, I think that's when I enjoy running the most. It's like just running with groups of people and being able to be like, yo, this sucks, right? And then be like, yep, it sucks. It's like, all right, I get it. If I'm running by myself, the part I love about running the most, and when I'm running by myself throughout the whole process, is somewhere in the middle of the run. So like right before I'm like, no, it's actually right after I'm like, you know what? Fuck this shit, I'm about to quit. And then like somewhere in between there, and there's like this little gap of like euphoria, like right before like the full-on runner's high kick in. Then I'm like, I'm a loser. I can't do this. Why am I even doing this? And then it goes from like, oh, this ain't that bad.
Yes.
So I always try to aim for trying to get to that point as quickly as possible. I'm like, this sucks. Why am I doing this? I'm quitting. I'm done forever. And then it's like, I can do this forever.
Yes. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. For me, it's like that first 20 minutes, I was like, I felt like I went down, and I was like, oh, that's nice. So I know exactly what you mean. Now I remember what I lost track of a few minutes ago. Now, this was actually when I discovered you, when you posed naked for, was it Men's Health? Yes, that was when I discovered you. Through she's going to be I'm doing her interview next week, so she's also going to be a guest on the podcast, Myrna Valerio, who is also an ultra runner. So I've met her, and I was following her, and she had, I don't know, she shared your post or something, and I saw it. Like, I don't even know how else to ask this. What possessed you to do that? What possessed you to pose nude for this magazine? You know, given that you don't have the traditional Men's Health body image.
Well, you know, when the opportunity presents itself, so man, you just gotta go for it, right?
Tell me how this opportunity presents. Like, let's backtrack a little bit. Where did that opportunity come from? Because that I just thought that was brilliant. I love that.
So, earlier that year, I was on the cover of Runner's World, right? And I got a lot of press inquiries from them. Like, hey, we want you to take pictures, be on the magazine, blah, blah, blah. And then like one came through, and it was very cryptic, like, hey, got something for you. Let us know. Can't tell you what it is, but if you're interested, we'll send you an NDA, and then like we'll hook you up. And I remember talking to my wife and being like, should I do this? Like, should I sign this NDA? Like, what is this gonna be? And then she's like, well, if it's something you don't want to do, like, you just forget about it and move on. I was like, okay. So then I signed the NDA, and it was like, okay, we're doing this thing where we're asking men to pose nude. It's like, are you okay with that? And I'm like, sure, why not? And I was like, okay, well, like, what magazine is this? Like this ain't no Playgirl or nothing, right? This ain't no Like, before I say yes, like, what type of magazine is it? And they was like Men's Health. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, let's do it. So went ahead, did it. I remember just telling my wife, like, yep, posing nude. And she was like, okay. And like you can see like the wheels turning in her head, like, so what is this? Like, is this a new habit now? Like, just go out and pose naked in front of people? Like, well, it is what it is. And get on set. And it was a new shoot. It was interesting. It was interesting of like them posing you. So to make sure like your junk don't show out on the
Of
so
course.
it's
Yeah.
all of like the posing, and then like that picture is like me of like jumping. So I'm like jumping naked and like trying to keep this pose of like, no, wait, keep that shot, keep that pose right there, do it all over again, jump, higher, and like keep the pose. And it's like, what the hell did I get myself into? So it was fun. It was funny. But it was an interesting thing of like them trying to pose you and like, here, get the robe if you feel like you need it, and like don't get the robe, and like, all right, we need you to unrobe. It was just a lot of logistics that comes around with like being on set, being naked, and like making sure that like everybody's okay with this.
Yeah. And what was the spread for? Like, what type of feature was it?
So the feature was like, they wanted to do this body issue. So it wasn't just me naked. Like they interviewed a bunch of men, took pictures of a bunch of men naked in like various poses, right? And they wanted what was a Sports Illustrated, either Sports Illustrated or ESPN magazine does this thing, or used to do this thing every year called the Body Issue, where they have like the professional athletes like pose nude in their particular sport, for that magazine. So Men's Health was like, we want to do that, but what would it look like to have like everyday men do this as well? So I was like, okay, like I'm down with that. So that's like, you're a big runner guy. Like, we love what you do. We love your message. Like, we want you to do this, and we want you to, experience grace and elegance while jumping and being naked.
And you did. Well,
yes.
Anybody who's listening to this, go and look for that. Go and look for that issue. I want to talk a little bit, turn back a little bit to the book and the sort of the whole writing and publishing process, just because it doesn't sound to me like you started that process as a writer. Like, do you consider yourself a writer when you started this book, or like, because you said you wouldn't recommend it, like 10 out of 10 do not recommend, but like what?
0 out of 10.
So did you consider yourself to be a writer when you started this process?
Not necessarily. So like I dibbled and dabbled in blogging for a while, but it's not blogging in the sense of like what people do for a living. It's more of like journaling, right? It's like online journaling is basically what I would call it. And like I used to do that for a while, and then I went to go get a graduate degree, and I had a master thesis, and I had to write for my master thesis. And that was the longest 400 pages of my life.
Oh, I can imagine.
So I remember being like, nope, hate it, don't want to do this, don't want to ever do this again. But somewhere in this process of like being frustrated that there isn't a book that I need to recommend to my people out there, that quote of like, be the change that you wanted to see resonated with me, to the fact where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to be the change. And even though I don't want to do it, I'm going to do it. It's like, there's a trope that's like the reluctant leader. I was like, I'm gonna have to be the reluctant leader. Like, I don't really want to do this, but it needs to be done, so I'm going to do
it. Okay. And how, I mean, you've obviously written a 400-page master's thesis, so you knew the process of like just putting words on the paper.
Mm-hmm.
How did you stay, like, I guess, motivated, I would say, throughout the process?
I didn't.
Okay. Honesty. I love it.
So I was very methodical about my writing, just like I'm very methodical about like all the other things that I do.
Mhm.
So when they told me, when I got my book deal, they told me it's going to be anywhere between 70,000 to 75,000 words. I remember first being like, holy crap, that's a lot of words. How many words? I'm gonna write that out. And then like also being like, well, how many pages that is? And it's like, oh, don't worry about pages. It's all about words. Get the words on the paper. So I did the math. I literally just did math. I was like, all right, if I start writing now, and if I treat it like a job and write 5 days a week, or I don't know, 18 months or how many months I had, 75,000 words divided by these many days. And I kind of rounded like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to write all 5 days a week. So let's put 4 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
4 days a week times or divided by 75,000 words gave me a number.
Mm-hmm.
That number was around 200 words. So I was like, oh, well, I can do 200 words. Like that's like a Netflix movie description. Like, I can do 200 words a day. So that became my goal. And that was the minimum. The bare minimum was for me to do 200 words a day. Knowing that some days I'm going to do more than 200, other days I'm going to do less than 200. But the goal was to get 200 words per day. And that's what I did. And throughout the whole writing process, there were times where I'll sit down and I didn't have anything to write. So I'll literally just type, this sucks. Like, this is dumb. So like, this is dumb. This is dumb. One day my doctor said X, Y, and Z. And then I'll get a nice little flow of words. And then I'll run out and I go back to like, this is dumb. This is dumb. And then like, I'll add some more sentences. And then I run out again. And I'm like, this is dumb. This is dumb. And by the time I was done for that particular day, I'll do like select and find, this is dumb, delete all, this is dumb. And then like, and now you got something there that you can actually like work with.
I absolutely love that. And the thing I like about the sort of 200 words is it's such a manageable amount, right? I think quite often I'll talk to people and they get put off by the big number, so much so that they never think about the fact that it's still one word at a time. Like that's why I think I said earlier, when I was reading your chapter, I was like, running and writing, like similarly, one foot in front of the other, one word at a time. And you kind of forget that even if you wrote, like there was this woman who I listened to on a podcast years ago, and I wish I could remember her name. And she was like, she wrote her book in 10 minutes a day. She was just like, that was all she had. And so 10 minutes every day, and maybe it was like 50 words or 100 words or whatever. But she was like, by the end of a couple of years, she had a book, which she wouldn't have done if she kind of thought 10 minutes, that's nothing, I need 2 hours or whatever. So I love that you just kind of did the math and broke it down. And that was, that was a pretty straightforward thing.
Yeah.
So in terms of, so I'm going to ask first about the book and then about your journey as a whole. So first about the book, what was like your proudest moment?
About the book?
Or has it not come yet?
I think I have some, I think one of the proudest moments that I had was after I put it down for a minute. There's a period of time where like the book is done, you send it to the publisher, and like there's nothing for you to do, right? And then they send it back to you and say, okay, we want to do edits, read through the edits and things of that sort. And one of the proudest moments that I had, that I was like, oh, this book really gonna be that hotness, it's gonna be hot fire, was I was reading this back and I was like, yo, whoever wrote this is fire.
You're like, this is dope. This is dope. Oh, it was me. I love that.
So it's like that meme, like, oh, this dude's spitting. And I was over there like, dude, like I'm getting hype reading my own words. So that was one of a proud moment. Another one was when I sent it out to my test readers. So I had some test readers, and I had 25 people read this book before I gave the final draft to the publisher. And I gave them survey questions and things of that sort. And some of these people were my friends, some of these people I didn't know. And when I got the feedback back, and they was like, loved it, this is amazing, it's going to change the industry. And I'm like, y'all just saying that. But there was one friend who owns a bookstore, and I know she reads a lot of books, consumes a lot of books. And she was like, yo, this is by far one of the best books I've read this year.
Ooh, that's a compliment.
Okay.
That's a compliment.
Okay. And I knew it was true because she owns a bookstore. She reads books all day, every day.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And what would you do differently if you had to go back and do it again, or do another book? Although I say that, noticing your face, that might not happen. But if you had to do another book, or
look, my agent and the publisher is always already talking about book number 2.
Telling people you can't just write one book. It don't work. Just does not work like that.
So
what would you do different for book number 2?
I like the process. I think one of the things, I don't know. That's a good question, because I think I did everything I wanted to do. I think I did everything I wanted to do. There are some parts that I wish I would have had more social media engagement of telling people to after you read this and you find X, Y, and Z, share it online and tag me and things of that sort. I wish I would have did more of that. But as far as what I did for the book, the process of the book, the things that I wrote, the things I fought for to keep in, even though the editor didn't wanted to take it out, I did all of those things.
I'm curious about an example of something that you fought to keep in, if you don't mind sharing.
You know that song on chapter 1, Send Me, I'll Go?
Yes.
I had to fight to keep that in.
Wow, really?
I had to fight to keep that in. And it took me nearly 2 months to get the permission from the artist to use it as well.
Okay, wow, that is interesting.
So that was something that I had to fight tooth and nail for, because they was like, we don't know if we're gonna get this approved. We don't even think you need to go down that route. And I was like, just give me a chance. Let me let's keep it in there. If I gotta shorten it, I'll shorten it or paraphrase it. But I really want this song in there because it really means a lot to me, and I think it'll mean a lot to the other individuals. So to do that, and then to find the gospel singer who did this, right? He's an older gentleman, and trying to hit him on Facebook, not getting the answer, trying to hit him on Instagram, not getting the answer, sleuthing on the internet to figure out oh, he's on tour, who's on tour with him, how can I get in contact with the people who on tour with, to say hey, let him know that I'm trying to get in touch with him because I'm trying to get this book, I'm trying to get this in this book. And then finding his assistant or agent, and they're not necessarily being the best responsive back, and trying to follow up and get it going and get the paperwork. And then they was we're going to give you a verbal approval. And I was like, no, there's some paperwork we need to get you signed. So it's just a lot to get those few sentences in there, but it means a lot for me to do that. So shout out to them for approving to let me have that in there in that book, because it really means a lot.
Yeah, and I love that, and I like the perseverance. Although I think we already know that you already have all you are already equipped for that, for with everything else that you've built. Now, looking at your sort of overall journey, not just as a writer but as a creative. Created lots of stuff. Obviously, you've got your clothing, you've got your podcasts, you've got your community. And I'm sure you're not done. What's something that you might, either might have done differently or something that you want to try differently next?
Well, I am the next thing that I am trying is like this whole nonprofit world, this not-for-profit world. So we have the Slow F Run Club, we have the app, we have the merch. One of the things that I am going into now is creating a nonprofit arm for Slow F Run Club, so that then we can allow individuals to apply worldwide to create their own Slow F Run Club around in their local area, and trying to
Ooh.
figure out like what that looks like. That is a huge undertaking, trying to figure that stuff out, trying to figure out insurances all over the place. But it's something that I think is the next logical step for me, my journey, and just the Slow F Run Club brand in general.
Ah, that is, I like the idea. Um, yeah, what inspired, you said it's the next sort of logical thing. Does it feel strange thinking that you created this thing and now it's kind of having a life of its own?
Yes. Yes, because this is my baby. I fought tooth and nail for it. There has been a lot of things that I've been through just to like keep this thing going. And I could have quit. But instead, like it is taking like legs of its own, and Slow F Run Club will eventually be that beacon, a hope for running, that I wish I've had when I first started running more than 10 years ago. And like, I'm just happy to be able to give it to the next person. But yes, it is when you start talking about nonprofits or not for profits, insurance, and like really trying to figure out like how in the world you're going to have like this global community, and like how do you do that? Like that's a huge undertaking. And to really think about that stuff and be like, oh man, forget this, I ain't gonna do it. But me be like, you know what? This is interesting, but I know how much it will mean to like those individuals around the world who feel like they're left out and they have to fend for themselves. And eventually they will have a community for them out there in their area. That really makes me happy.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I see myself as like the flywheel for running, that, if you build it, they will come. So by having Slow F Run Clubs, people will then see like, oh, like I'm Slow F, I can be a part of that community. And then they get into running, that then helps lift the tides of all of the running community. That's the hope.
I love that. That's a brilliant vision. I really like that. One thing I'm curious about, because you kind of run for a living. Obviously, you got your stuff that you created, whatever, but like the core of it is running. Do you
Mhm.
still enjoy it as much?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Um, I think one of the things I'm enjoying now is I don't see like being like an elder statesman, but like to go to the various places and to be able to inspire other people, right? For example, I was at Boston Marathon this past weekend,
Oh,
and just to, I ran the 5K, and I went out there and cheered and gave high fives. And it was something about like seeing other people come to you and say, "Hey, Martinez, like I didn't expect you to be here, but like thank you." And you wouldn't believe how much like your story and your journey has an impact on my life. So I really enjoy that, because sometimes you're in the depths of your own house doing Instagram stories or just working out and just posting stuff, and you be like, does this stuff really matter? And
mm,
then eventually people hit you and be like, yo, this is game changing. Thank you. This is needed. And we're like, yeah, I guess it does matter.
yeah. Yeah. No, and I think it's good to have that reinforcement sometimes, even if you don't have it all the time. You do need it
Right.
sometimes.
Right. So I think that's the thing. And like, I'm having fun doing shorter distances now. So like 5Ks, 10Ks, may throw a half marathon in there. Um, I'm just having fun with that, because I can like have a life, and like my wife can still like me. versus
And see you.
and see me versus running a marathon and all of the hardship that comes along with training for and doing a marathon.
Mm. And I really like that. Probably gonna wrap up soon because we're getting to that sort of time. But like, any final thoughts, anything I didn't ask you that you really wish I'd asked, or anything you want to mention before you sort of tell us a bit about your book and where people can get it from?
No, this is fun.
Yeah, it was good. One of my favorite things you said was probably one of the first things you said, which was, to me, is almost like how someone said something to you that they obviously, I mean, he was drunk, so probably wasn't thinking about it too much. But I like the idea that someone said something to you that they thought would stop you, and you're kind of like, I think I'm gonna put that on a t-shirt, right? And it's like,
Right.
I love that sort of, I really like the idea of just taking that thing and being like, yeah, I'm just gonna put it on a t-shirt and see what happens, and and not sort of letting it stop you. Because I think people, I always remember when I started training for my half marathon, there were these boys in the park that used to make fun of me. And I was running with a coach at the time, and she was like, literally, they're like sitting on the bench, and I don't know if they were drinking or not, but she was just like, they're not running. They're like, do not let people who, that there's that quote about being in the arena, and don't let people who are like not in the arena with you to put you off from what you're doing.
Right.
And I just thought of that when you told that story. So I love how you were like, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, put on a t-shirt, see what happens. That is the best. Tell us a bit about, so as I said, this is coming out the week that your book launches. So tell us a bit about where people can find your book, where they can find your running club if they are so inclined. And where they can find you, where they can follow you.
So yes, the book should be available wherever books are sold. So I have a large publisher. Shout out to Penguin Random House. So it should be at your local book retailer, both indie and large. Or of course, Jeff Bezos will have it as well somewhere as well.
Yeah, it's as a self-published writer, I still have to do a little shout out for the Amazon, but I say if you got a big publisher and you can be at an indie bookstore, that's always a good place to start.
Yes, so you can find it there. Slow AF Run Club, the ultimate guide for anybody who wants to run. You can find out more about the club at slowafrunclub.com. We also have an app on iOS and Android. So as you're listening to this, go ahead and open up the screen, go to your app store, type in Slow AF Run Club, and you will find us there inside the app store. Download and request to join. We'll let you in. And then you can find me on all things the interweb. So at 300 Pounds of Running on Instagram and Facebook, 300poundsofrunning.com, as well as slowafrunclub.com as well.
Great. And one last thing, what would you say to a 40-something-year-old person who hasn't run for many years, who is like pretty much terrified of ever putting on those running shoes again? What would you say?
I would say you can do it. I think a lot of times the things that we have in our head is worse than the things that actually come to fruition. And so instead of thinking about like what would happen if you fail, you start thinking about what would happen if you actually did it and it come out better than what you actually dreamed for. So put one foot in front of the other, pick a race, sign up for that race, and train for it.
I will. I'll keep you posted. I will let you know. Some of the people from the office that I work at are looking to do a 5K, and they were like, "Hey, you're gonna run it?" And I was like, "I will walk it, but I will give it some more thought, and I'll let
give it some try. Give it a shot. Like you've done it. Like you didn't ever tell me your half marathon story. What happened?
Yeah. So what happened was that, and I remembered it because I was listening to one of your most recent podcast episodes this morning, and you were talking about how the Gatorade made you sick.
Yes.
So I had a similar experience. The Gatorade made me really sick, but I was determined to finish it. And I have a friend called Hannah who will be listening to this episode because I'm going to tell her all about it. And Hannah used to be a cross-country runner for school. And so I'm running. I'm exhausted. I was literally about to stop, and I see this person come up next to me, and she was watching from the sidelines, and she came and she ran a whole mile with me. And then some other random person came and they ran, and it was like I could not have finished that race without those random people who just literally just came and ran with me. Hannah was not random. Hannah is my friend, but like I literally had a run. Like I was about to stop, right? Mm-hmm. And I had these random people just coming up to me and like running with me. And these are like people who are just watching the race. And like, I don't know, it just made me feel like, you know, I know I've mentioned a few times like the parallel between running and writing. And the reason is because I feel like I did so much of my half marathon training alone. But when you're running that half marathon, like, I just felt like I wasn't alone, and it was such a nice feeling. And I feel the same way about writing. I think sometimes you think of writing as a solitary exercise, but I feel like, you know, just like how you said, you love to inspire people. I feel like the magic happens when those complete strangers come off the sidelines. They're like, I'm going to run the next, 10 minutes with you or whatever. Like, let's go. And like, just get me over the finish line. So that was my experience. I haven't really done much running since then. But I'm feeling a bit inspired now. So
it's okay. You can have an open relationship with running. You can come on back though.
it won't be mad at me.
It won't be mad. You can come on back to running.
I will absolutely let you know how it goes. This has been a complete treat. Thank you so much for joining me. Looking forward to reading the rest of your book. Looking forward to sharing your episode with my listeners. And yeah, good luck with everything. Good luck with that second book. That means I'll have to have you on when that one comes out.
Yeah.
Nudge. Do you know? You don't have to tell us, but do you know what it's going to be about?
Running.
Obviously. But like, I mean, so you haven't said it all in your first book. You feel you still got more to say about running?
Yes. That was like, I think I could go into memoir status. I think, there's a lot of things, a lot of stories that I didn't tell, or a lot of stories that didn't make it inside of this book because I only had 10 chapters. And my publisher was like, no, like, we want this to be a how-to book. Like you said, it's going to be a how-to book. So like, don't have as many stories in there. So I feel like there could be a memoir waiting on me. I feel like there could be another running book, because I feel like this is just this is like running 101. I feel like we can go a lot deeper and get into like some specifics. I think there's a lot of things I can do with this book, right? So
I have bad news for you, Martinus. I think you might be a writer. Just sit with that.
Oh no! No.
Yeah, and there you see, I knew it. You say that everyone is a runner. I say that everyone is a runner. So I will definitely think about this 5K. You think about our next book.
Alrighty.
Thanks so much for joining me, and everyone else who's listening, join us again next time. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us today. You can find out more about our guests in the notes below, and don't forget to hit subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss new episodes when they drop. And if this has inspired you to get your own writing project into the world, click on my website below and learn how you can work with me as a writing coach or an editor. Until next time, I send you big love from a small island.